Arun Khehar joins the podcast today. I'm extremely delighted to have Arun join. A little bit about his background. He's a well-known executive business leader that's been recognized by Forbes and has a long history as a multinational people and business leader for the business applications suite across companies in the regions of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. His diverse background, leadership principles, and early life experiences have served as a foundation and shaped Arun for the stellar journey and impactful positions that he's been in. In 2018 and 2019, he was recognized among the top 15 Indian business leaders by Forbes Middle East, resulting from his successful impact and leadership across the multicultural teams, representing 1,000 plus employees across several regions. I've asked Arun to connect with me today to share some of his stories of his background, the things that shaped him, the lessons that he's learned, and also discuss his leadership principles, philosophies, and provide you listening and watching some guidance on how to hone in on your craft and just get better at leadership. Arun, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Great to see you, Rishan. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to see you as well. I always like to start off a little bit with the early days, right? So maybe we can jump in with you sharing a little bit about your background, the very first job actually. Talk about that and, talk about how that journey transitioned you into where you are.
Yeah, so I'll start even before that. So I was born in India, and then I started my schooling in Rhodesia, Harare, of today. And so I started going to school there. My father was a diplomat, so we traveled around. So I lived in Rhodesia, Nepal, a bit of China in those days, and then eventually ended up in Sweden for doing my high school and my college. And so I spent about 8 odd years in Sweden, and that's where I started my job because I qualified as a marine engineer. And I worked there for a year, started paying 54% taxes. And I was just 23, 24 years old. And I thought there must be better things in life than that. So I explored the world and ended up in UAE in 81, which is it's my 40th year this year, by the way.
Wow.
So
congrats.
yeah. So I came here, and before I knew, I started working, and I really started working for HP distributor in UAE, selling word processors. And each word processor used to be for about $40,000 a piece. So we're talking about really ancient machines. And then I moved on and to 1 or 2 other companies, and started working for a company called IRI, which was a specialized company for retail business. And they analyzed data in retail business and had solutions for that, which was eventually bought over by Oracle. And I basically joined Oracle about 25 years back, and worked with them till last year. So it was a great journey, and that's really been in very few companies, relatively speaking, compared to the youngsters these days. So majority of my work has been in Oracle and maybe Apple and distributorships in the region. So that's in a nutshell.
You haven't been in a lot of companies, but you've been in a lot of countries, a lot of diverse experiences that you've described there, just by being in Sweden, born in Rhodesia in Zimbabwe, growing up in Rhodesia and Zimbabwe, born in India, and living in the Middle East as well, right? And of course, just working and being responsible for large organizations across multiple countries. Like, tell me a little bit about that. Did you speak some of the other languages, by the way?
I speak Swedish. I'm just about okay to understand French. I can't speak, but I can read and I get it. If I am left in Paris for a few days, I probably can handle myself better. And Arabic, not really. Again, very tough language to learn. I think unfortunately everybody speaks English here, so it didn't go in my favor. That is one regret. But yeah, culturally, it's been a great experience because to live in different countries, to go to 7, 8 schools, around different parts of the world, having, like in Sweden, in the American school we had 22 students from 19 different countries. So the culturally sort of helps you grow up better, with better understanding of different cultures, people, and you make friends, which is how my life has been. So you make good friends, and these friends come handy when you, in your day-to-day life, whatever you do, and at work. So made great friends at Oracle who I would have never met if it wasn't for the background I have.
One of the things that's been happening, or it happens quite frequently, with technology being enabled to people and individuals just working in all these multinational companies, and of course, prior to the pandemic, is really that ability to move across regions. And more often than not, there's the topic of being adaptable to different cultures and to different regions. And I'd love to get your thoughts a little bit around adaptability to different regions that you live in. What are some of the key things that you think about when moving and working in different regions?
Yeah, I think it's much easier these days than when I moved to Sweden. For example, culturally, it was a huge task to learn the language. But when you work for a multinational and move, I think half the battle is over, because you've got a job, you've got a salary, you've got all the other things fixed. So you're grateful to these companies that take care of you. So it depends on how you move and when, at what age you move. But I think I would personally think that in today's world, I recommend every youngster to have multiple objectives, and one key objective has to be that they have worked in different regions, seen different cultures, learned different things, because it will come handy in their lives.
Absolutely. I want to jump back a little bit to your career there, right? You talked about the organization that was acquired by Oracle, and you getting into that organization, and there's a rapid trajectory that you've been on all the way up to senior vice president of such a large region, also being recognized by Forbes, which is some excellent accolades and merits, right? Maybe you can, if there's a couple of things that you could highlight that shaped you in those early days to be positioned and recognized and just growing into some of those senior roles, what would you say those things would be?
I think we were in the right place at the right time, for sure, because Oracle applications business, which was starting around that time, I was part of the first team that started working in the applications business. And it was new. Oracle was not known to be in an apps player. It was really a technology player. So that helped, because the whole world was open to us. We were not scared at that time to look at who can we sell to. There was no benchmark. So when you have no benchmark, the world is open to you. And that's really what we went after, me and my team. And remember, there was no Google, there was no internet at that time. We're talking about 95. It just started around that time. People still had faxes in their offices. The orders used to come on fax, and that was a legal document. So we started from basics. I have personally gone into buildings and towers and actually gone from top floor down to see who is in which office and what size is the office and what kind of business they do. And we started from there, saying, if they have a reasonably big office, if they have air conditioning, if they have good carpets and good staff, those are the kind of companies that can afford automation from Oracle and ERP from Oracle. And those were the starting points. We went to manually through yellow pages. In some countries, like in Africa, in most of the countries, we didn't even have yellow pages. So we really had to go in the streets and to find who are the players in industries, telecom industry, who are the banks, in the bank, who is the stakeholders, who would buy HR from you or budgeting systems from you. So it was ground up work. There was no data available. But I think the beauty of that is you learn on daily basis and pick up the details from the streets. So nobody can bullshit to you on what's happening on the ground. And I think that's really what the team did and created sort of this huge network of skills and knowledge. And I think so. One component, if I go back to your question, one big component was the guts. I think the team had the guts to say we will go and do whatever it takes and create a line of business that didn't exist.
It's that a lot of boldness and confidence, right, that comes from that, but that also comes from the real impact of leadership. And as you described, the business unit itself being a very relatively new or brand new business unit to the organization because it was not something that they've typically done in the past. You've had to, I would imagine, apply some entrepreneurial activity because you're not just responsible for the business, but you're responsible for people and ensuring that people are enabled for success as well, right? So I'd love to hear, like, because when you get into a role like that, it's hard to just learn leadership. It's hard to just learn, hey, how to successfully drive a team. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about the leadership philosophy and principles that you would have applied to lead people and lead a business to ensure growth.
I think it comes with ownership because there was ownership given to us by our leaders. So there are my peers, my leaders, in the region who helped us shape us because we were very young.
Right.
We're talking about 25, 30 years back. So the journey started then. So, and given, I think, the freedom to explore, and not create hurdles for you. So yes, there was guidance, but no hurdles. Saying, yes, go out and do whatever it takes, and we will support you. And as we went, we learned, we made mistakes, we fell, the leaders helped us get up. And there were a lot of people who were part of that created success and are still there with Oracle. But there are a lot of people who couldn't take the pressure because it was a 14, 18-hour day, which went on for years till markets were established. So it's not a small thing because what we were trying to do is start a fresh business, understand the products, understand the customer need, create budgets for these projects because people didn't have any idea on what budgets and what should be needed. Then bring skills from all over the world into these regions because the skills didn't exist. Sometimes train them locally. So the supply chain of creating success was huge. And then, there were times where we had to hire in 1 year 120 salespeople in 1 year and train them and get them ready. And with the attrition, this saga never finished because every year we have 10 to 15% attrition. You need more people for the next year. So many years in between, we were hiring at a rate of 70, 80 people every year just to keep the momentum going and the growth going. So I think it was fun. And also, that is a big component of this because there are people in the team who wanted to do this together with the rest of them because this was their PhD, not MBA. This is their PhD because they really believe they can create magic here, and that's what the teams did.
I pick up a lot there in everything that you've described, right? Is just around the leadership teams creating the space for you and the organization at that early stage, but also being able to recruit the right talent, bring in the right skill set to ensure success, and then also have fun along the way and enjoy the journey, right? And so there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of grit, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of application of a proper, solid mental focus that would go into all those things to eventually reach, the trajectory and the journey that you've been on. I'm super curious because this always comes up more often than not. When you manage such a large organization, you're on a plane a lot, you're traveling a lot, you're responsible for the largest organizations across Europe, Middle East, Africa, big companies, big partners, and some really senior leaders. Those are a lot of balls to juggle. How did you do that?
You do it because you want to and because you can and you're enjoying it. And, and it had to be done because you had to go for that 1 hour meeting to Cape Town. You had to go to Zimbabwe to meet the government. You had to do these things because you are the face of Oracle. That's the job I had at that time. And customers wanted the comfort to meet the senior leaders of the region, and I was one of them. And and that trust that you build with them is what pays off in the long run. So that is the key word, because this part of the world, trust and relationship plays a huge role. It's there culturally people are different, so they want to make sure that you pick up the phone when something is wrong. Weekend, no weekend, Christmas, New Year's, it didn't matter. And we did this, and our teams did this, and that came into play when we needed something from them. And when there was a small difference between choosing Oracle or something else, customers came to Oracle because they said, we get this, plus we get this, which is why I think we can take Oracle a decision. So yeah, I think it's just the whole piece that had to work, and it's not one piece. It's not just me being on flight. The teams were on flights. All the teams. There were maybe 20 teams in the system in the region that used to fly heavily. I mean, sometimes you could see half the plane full of just people traveling to do business and to create relationships, and so it was, the world has changed. The people who will join work in the last year and a half, 2 years wouldn't realize what went in to 10, 15 years back to create this big, business. So, but it was very interesting for all of us, because we all came from different regions and got to know different cultures, small things that we learned, what clothes to wear, how to speak, where to sit, how to position ourselves in a boardroom. In each country, it was a different culture that we had to respect. At any given year, I would probably visit 25 to 30 countries.
Wow.
That was our job. But many more trips, sometimes multiple trips in a country, but that was the norm.
I'm a little bit of an international traveler, but I'll still tell you, like, I'm blown away by the diversity, the multicultural just diversity, and the experience that comes along with that in your answer. And, some key things I extract from just that summary there is the ability to enjoy what you're doing, and the capability to actually do it. But then, in addition to that, the trust, the relationships, and the impact that you have, just on
Yeah.
juggling all those balls and bringing all those pieces together, from the people, the customers, the partners, the organizations, etc. Looking back, in addition to the trust and the relationships and the impact, if there was one thing that you would say you're the most proud of that entire leadership journey, what would you say the one thing is?
I would say I made great friends,
Nice.
in the process, and at all levels, and not just internally. I made great friends with a lot of our customers. When they pass by Dubai, a lot of them come home. We go out for drinks, we go to golf. And the same goes for internal friends within Oracle team, partners, the extended network. So it is, I mean, if I met 10 people a week, and if you multiply that by 27 years, that's a lot of people.
Right, right.
Right? So, and there are a lot of, so I was very lucky. I made great friends all over the world, and they're all very well connected on WhatsApp today, even more now than before, because we have more time. And so yeah, I think that's the best piece of um, of work, where you met some really great people and made some great friends. And their families, their kids. So and even internally, by the way, I know a lot of guys who work for me. I know their families, their kids, which school they go to, what problems they've had. So, and it was like one big family.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? And the level
Yeah.
of, or the power of internal connections and past relationships puts us in a
Yeah.
position to communicate across the world right now and have a discussion on this topic specifically, right? And I love it.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about your early journey, the entrepreneurial activities, starting a business, growing the business rapidly, like just amazing, amazing results, right? Amazing trajectory. If you could look back to the early days that you talked about earlier on, right? Starting things off, if there was one piece of advice that you could go back and give yourself, what would that be?
Give myself.
Yeah.
Uh, I should have taken more time off. I think a normal day for me was 16, 17 hours for the
Wow.
normal day. My wife keeps reminding me I have had no holidays, so it was always an Oracle trip extended by 4 days or a week. No, but so yes, I think the balance probably of private time versus work should have had a much thicker wall in between, but it didn't. Maybe that's the only thing I would say, but it's easier to say, but I think everyone who has had jobs like mine probably did the same. So I don't know if anybody did a better, had more flexibility in private time versus working time. So I'm not sure. But I think that's probably the only piece I would put in there. But otherwise, I think it was great and it was good fun.
You've had an amazing and admirable journey. And so much, much further down the line from now, when the coil is burnt out on the journey, what is it that you want to be remembered and known for?
Well, I want to continue working. So I know I have a couple of passions. One is I love meeting customers. Love meeting people. So I do that today, even more than or as much as before, but more on Zoom now than face to face. So yeah, I'm a face to face kind of a guy who wants to meet people face to face, but it's not happening that much except in this part of the world where we live. So that is one. I like to mentor youngsters. So there is always a couple of calls a week from different regions where people want to understand some how to do business here, to how to handle jobs, what to look for in life, some learnings, just coaching sometimes. So I'll continue doing that. I want to improve my handicap. So that's not happened for a long time. So, so I I want to make sure I do that. I bought a new golf set, so I'm going to put a lot of time on that set to make sure on weekends when I go and play, I don't lose money anymore to my friends. So that is an ambition. Yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, I want to share more with I want to share my experience with more people, and I am doing that. As I can do more. I should do more. I think I keep reminding myself, every week I should double, triple that interaction. And with internet today, through LinkedIn and other medium, people are connecting with you to ask you for advice and different things. And some people just need a little bit of tweaking. Now, I was lucky. I had, I was given that support from my seniors and I could have gone wrong many times in my life. And some of these things worked because there were good people on the ground who told you if you do this, this is what is where you're going to reach, and if you do this, this is the risk. So I think these things, you can't make some people make these mistakes and they pay a heavy price.
Mm.
So I would love to write a book one day or do coaching one day on, to basically support youngsters to handle their jobs better and create more success for themselves. And it's very thin line. It's very easy to go on left, very easy to go right and fall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an incredibly profound statement there, right? And obviously, when you do publish your book, I'll be the first in line for that. Arun, thank you so much. It's been incredible. Right? I'm just so fortunate to have had this opportunity to connect with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to share this with us, share your journey with
It
me.
was great talking to you. I know we've been trying to do this for a while,
Yes, yes.
and I'm glad we did it today. And yeah, keep in touch and happy to connect more often.
Thank you so much, Arun.